Welcome to the Other Discovery Show, the podcast that's not about podcasts. It's the bonus show from the Podcast Discovery Show where we talk about all of the other things that we've discovered throughout the week. I'm Kirk.
I am Zach. And this week, we have stuff to discover. And since you won't let me talk about one thing I wanted to discover this week, I'll talk to you about something that's really awesome. And I actually, as soon as I saw this article, I messaged you like, don't steal this and just put it in the Facebook group. We're going to talk about this for real on the show because it came from your source.
Today I learned.
Mm-hmm, I think so. So I discovered that not only, and I mean, this one kind of makes sense. Birds, when they're calling, it is not just to sound nice or anything like that. There's a lot of message in it. But beyond that, like tribes have learned to understand and use bird calls to essentially be able to track things around them. And we can too. There is something that is very awesome about kind of understanding nature around you. And this you can literally do because birds have many different calls for many different reasons. And by just listening and trying to learn it, you can pick up a lot of information. So there has been a lot of, like I said, tribes that have figured this out, but there's also books that have come out since then that literally can teach you how to understand this. And there is bird language experts. There's a lot of tools to help you try and understand this. But first of all, the way that you do this is you go outside a lot. You find a place that you really enjoy being outside and you start trying to figure out what birds are kind of typically around you. And then you start listening. And there's a book by John Young called What the Robin Knows that literally will teach you all about this. So if you're at all interested in learning, not just that birds are making noise, but what those noises mean, there's a book for that. So essentially, you go and you sit outside, and it's better if you can pick a place because then you'll start to be around the same birds over and over again. You'll start to understand what they specifically are saying. And then you need to sit there for 20 minutes because then everything gets used to you being there and settles down. And it's not like going to be a constant thing where they're scared of you and not making any noise except for like alarm calls. So you want to look for songbirds or things that forage or nest on the ground because they're the ones that are going to be more likely to do a lot of calls about predators and about things in their area that they want to alert stuff to. And then find a specific species so that you can get very used to one specific bird and the calls that they make. And so there's a lot of ways that you can kind of do this. But there is a website that the Audubon runs that's a guide to North American birds. And you can literally look at pretty much everything down here. And not only that, but they have recordings of calls. And you can listen to that. And they even have some of them tagged. Like I was looking at just checking out the website. There's one about the robin, the American robin. And there's literally a specific call for they see a hawk because hawks are predators for birds. So there's one specific call that they always do when they see a hawk. And so it was really interesting to me that you could not only like start to better understand the types of songs they have, but you can get familiar with a specific type of bird and literally kind of see how they're communicating.
Was it a discovery that you had or that we had talked about previously about birds having different names? And then there was like a scientist and they had the video and everything where he had like camera and microphones in this like nest thing that he had built. And
was that you? Was that your discovery?
I don't remember if it was, I don't know. I don't remember. But anyway, I remember that he had, and it was like microphones to the point where you could see the wavelengths. And each bird had its own name, and both parents called them by the same exact name. And they were talking about how that bird's name stays with them throughout their whole life. At least I forget what variety of bird. It was a specific type of bird, but I thought that was nuts too. And I didn't know there was as much as what you're talking about. I mean, there's crazy stuff about like crows and stuff like that we've talked about in the past.
Yeah, because they can speak English words.
Them like basically holding grudges and knowing when someone's done them wrong and then literally like harassing them forever.
Did I tell you that Reddit story I read that one time where a guy literally
moved a bird? Yeah.
He saw like what do they call them? They have like murder circles.
A murder of crows?
No, they have like crows will get in a circle and they'll have like a jury. They'll have like a trial for one of the birds. And if it did wrong, they'll kill it. Like they'll gang kill the bird. And so a guy watched that and it happened in his backyard. He's like, I'm getting this dead bird out of my yard. But all the other crows that murdered that bird were up in the trees and they saw him do it. And as soon as he touched the bird, they all freaked out. And then he was harassed by crows indefinitely afterwards just because
I think
with the crow.
I think that's part of the article that we were talking about on the crows in particular. Yeah, but yeah, birds, animals in general are a lot smarter than a lot of times we give them credit for, or at least in different ways. That's the thing, is like in different ways than we normally would think of as intelligence. They show a lot of intelligence.
No, it's one of the cool things about how Varmints does. That's another show on our network and a good friend of ours, but he likes to try and change how we look at animal intelligence. And he has like kind of categories for how the ways that they're intelligent rather than like, can they read a book? Okay, then they're dumb animals.
Yeah. Yeah. There's another show that it's less scientific, but more fun in a way. They do like a D&D thing about the animal they're talking about that week. Like intelligence, dexterity, and all the other stuff like you would have like in a D&D character, like when you're rolling a character. So I thought that was funny. So you've heard of the Bermuda Triangle, correct?
I have.
I think everybody has. I used to love watching
as a kid.
Right. I used to love watching. Well, I was terrified, but also intrigued by watching those like history documentaries and stuff about all the planes going down and stuff like that.
That was right when History Channel started making a weird turn.
Yeah. I love watching stuff about giant squid and Bigfoot and
Storage Wars.
That was later on, but yeah. But have you ever heard of the Alaska Triangle?
No.
I hadn't either until today. More people disappear in the Alaska Triangle than anywhere else in the U.S. The Alaska Triangle they connect Anchorage, Juneau, and the south to Barrow. I don't know that place. I know the other two places. It's basically along the north coast, but it's very vast wilderness and stuff like that. But I thought it was fascinating because interest in the Alaska Triangle began in 1972 when a small private craft carrying U.S. House Majority Leader Hale Boggs seemingly completely vanished into thin air somewhere between Juneau and Anchorage. What followed was one of the nation's largest ever search and rescue missions. For more than a month, 50 civilian planes and 40 military aircraft scoured a search grid of 32,000 square miles, and they found nothing. Nothing at all.
So big, though. But yeah, that's a long search.
But here's the thing. I mean, and this is a pretty long article, but this is the interesting and just staggering number. But by the numbers, it seems something more interesting is at play. More than 16,000 people, including airplanes, passengers, and hikers, locals, and tourists, have disappeared within the Alaska Triangle since 1988. So just in our lifetime, that's the year that we were born. Just in our lifetime, 16,000 people have disappeared there.
And do they have guesses on why?
They do have somewhat, basically scientific theory as to why. Let's see where it says.
Is it aliens?
That was the first theory. Yeah. No. The most likely scientific explanation is due to geography. The state's massive glaciers are rife with giant holes, hidden caves, and building-sized crevasses, which all provide the perfect burying grounds for downed aircraft. Once an aircraft crash lands or a hiker becomes stranded, the fast-moving, year-round snow squalls can easily bury any trace of a person or even a plane. So that's the scientific reason.
So there's just places they can fall into and it snows all the time and they can hide it.
Yeah. So that's why they're saying they can't find evidence as easily. And obviously I've been to Alaska. I've seen it, and it's wild country. It's just a different level of wild. Um, this is a pretty snarky article. I do love it in a lot of ways. It says, at least that's what the scientific community would like us to believe, but we're going to keep looking into the wormholes and alien reverse gravity technology because both are way more interesting.
Yeah, it's true. No, that's crazy though, because that is a lot of people. How many people have disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle? Is that a real thing? Did you look at that at all? Because I definitely remember it, but it was from a time like, if the internet was around, it was early internet. It wasn't like that was in the time of just like kind of word of mouth. There's a Bermuda
It doesn't
Triangle.
say it in this article,
planes.
but yeah, definitely there's been a lot of, planes that have disappeared over there or have had weird anomalies or weird experiences in that area. In this article, they say lovers of lore and mystery have postulated everything from, this is talking about the Bermuda Triangle, unusually heavy air and bizarre weather patterns to alien involvement and energy lasers from this lost city of Atlantis.
I have heard the Atlantis one, and that's by far my favorite. Because if Atlantis is like, I don't know, if they're upset that they got put underwater and now they're shooting planes with lasers, that's, come on. If that was real, that would be amazing.
It would be pretty
amazing and
pretty
terrifying,
amazing.
though, because I mean, you can't stop that. If they're shooting water lasers and like taking down planes, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, what are you supposed to do?
Train some dolphins.
That's it.
Because they can
That's
handle
the
a
answer.
plane. They have lasers, but dolphin, they don't have the answer for that.
Nope.
So I discovered this week that according to a study, about 13% of people tell 10 lies per day. So a new study has found that 13% of people think of themselves as pathological liars or say that others consider them to be pathological liars. Those 13% reported that they told about 10 lies per day. And it's a small trial, but it's interesting because first of all, 13% seems high. And also, I don't know what the definition of like pathological liar would be, because wouldn't that be like, it's like
You can't stop yourself.
Right.
And it's almost involuntary.
Right. You would think there would be something where it's got pathology to it, where it's negative. It's negatively affecting you. Yeah. No, there's some, it's a chronic behavior of compulsive or habitual lying. Unlike telling the occasional white lie to avoid hurting someone's feelings or getting in trouble, a pathological liar seems to lie for no apparent reason. So it's interesting.
13% seems like a lot, but this is basically self-diagnosed pathological lying.
And I'll also say this. Wouldn't the pathological liar lie about being a pathological liar? So if you were a pathological liar and someone said, "Are you a pathological liar?" They'd be like, "Oh no, I've never told a lie in my life." Not 10 lies a day. That's too. I think these are people that are just guilty about saying that someone looked nice instead of look fat.
I mean, if you count little things like that, then heck, maybe I'm a pathological liar because
you're showing your hand.
Yeah, I guess I am. Your kids are asking you things all the time that you don't. No, I'm not talking about. No, that's not what I meant. It's mainly talking to my kid.
I'm messing with you.
Just trying to keep them from killing each other or starting giant arguments. It's like, hey, Daddy, do we have any cotton candy in the cabinets? And if we do, I'm like, no, of course not.
Wait, do you have cotton candy in your cabinets?
No. Well,
are you
not
lying?
Right now. Sometimes we do.
Where do you get cotton candy?
They sell it in like buckets. I don't know. Grandparents like to send stupid things home with kids. And that's one of the things that was in our cabinets recently. I don't know why that came to mind, but if Mason asks me, hey, at 9:00 at night, hey, Daddy, do we have any cotton candy left? I don't want to tell him yes because I don't want to have an argument of why he can't have it. But I'll just tell him, no, we don't have any left.
Nope.
Even though I know exactly where it's at.
You just have to eat it before the next day.
You do not want to give that kid sugar right before bed.
I believe that.
So, Zach, I know that you're a big fan of Alton Brown. Alton Brown? Did I say his name completely wrong? How do you say his name?
I've heard Alton. a lot.
There was a giant Reese's ad that made me not be able to open the freaking article because the Skype thing was over the close button. That was great. But I found this website that gives in-depth biographies of a lot of, like, basically everybody, and I love it. It has a lot of information that you wouldn't regularly know. I mean, it's basically IMDb, Wikipedia, whatever. But I like it because it's specifically the biography of this person. I think it's biography.com. Yeah, that's what it is. Very simple. But
Makes sense.
The thing that I found fascinating about his biography is his early career. See, now he's, reality TV star. He's a chef. He's written a bunch of cookbooks. He had a pretty sad thing growing up. His father had committed suicide, and just like he had a really weird childhood. But he learned his cooking skills by watching his mother and grandmother in the kitchen. And I love how he said that he learned to cook as a way to get dates in college. That's one of his motivations for learning how to cook. But one of my favorite things was this right here. It says, after studying film at the University of Georgia Drama Department, Brown worked as a cinematographer and video director. He was actually the director and of photography for the video of REM's song, The One I Love. So he was doing this music video. And it was during that shoot that he said that he spent all of his time between takes on the set watching cooking shows, and that he felt that he could do a better job. And through his work in film and television production, he met Deanna Collins, who he later married. But that was the inspiration for him to starting his own cooking show, because he was like, I'm into film and stuff like that, and I could do a way better job than these jabronis that are just up there cooking with the camera that just points down.
Oh, it's a different thing than that, because like he has movie references all in there. He has like weird Monty Python like segments. Good Eats is a really good show.
Yeah, no, what did he say?
He writes and is like a very, very, I would say that he's definitely the main creative on that, everything about that show.
Mm-hmm.
But I highly recommend it to everyone I know, because you learn not just like, here's a recipe, you learn why that recipe works, like the science behind it. And I think it's crazy interesting.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a very interesting show. I didn't know anything about it until you showed it to me. So I appreciate you exposing me to that show, because I think it's really good. But that was a quick little discovery. I thought it was good. And
I'll throw in an extra one.
Okay,
also, he's still doing Quarantine Kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And Quarantine Kitchen, I think we've talked about on this show before. It's him and his wife make a bare bones meal, as kind of ingredients that they have around. It's not really planned. They make a cocktail, they make dinner, and every other week they play a song, because he has also toured like with like a band. He likes music still.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. And then they also have essentially the same thing, but PG rated, that they've put on, I think it's Food Network. I don't know. It's somebody picked them up to do essentially a PG rated version of their show, because their YouTube show is not PG. But yeah, no, he's a really interesting guy, and I've learned a lot about cooking from him.
So that was a quick, small discovery. So I wanted to bring another one that I found fascinating, which is also a small one. But this one's actually going to be a discovery with the article and all that stuff in the club and stuff like that. But I wanted to bring it anyway because I just was too excited about it. You've probably heard of it. I feel like we maybe have even talked about it before. That Mythbusters at one point destroyed all the evidence of an easy-to-make explosive. Have you heard that story?
What do you mean? How did they
Okay, so in a Q&A at I think a Comic-Con or something, they asked Adam Savage, what was one of the biggest fails that you've ever had on Mythbusters? And instead of talking about something like silly and goofy, he talked about this. And he says he didn't share some lighthearted tale about an argument or fight the cast had, but instead told the frightening story about how Cary Grant and Tori were investigating an quote unquote easily available material and its supposed explosive properties. According to Savage, what they found out was so explosive that they actually destroyed the footage of what they made, and everyone involved agreed never to discuss it again.
Wow.
And they thought it was so dangerous that they even called DARPA and told them all about it to let them know how explosive this material, and of course he didn't say what the material was, how explosive it was, and how easy it could be to make a very bad bomb out of it.
I mean, all of this, it's hard for me to even think because, like, you heard that Grant passed away, right?
I was going to mention that. I actually didn't think about it until reading it just now.
Yeah, it's super sad. That one, I was like, oh, that's terrible. Because, like, Mythbusters was very important, and you watched a ton of Mythbusters with us. We watched a ton of Mythbusters. Just, it was back in the days of just cable TV, and what was on. And when that was on, it was a good time. And so it's really sad, like, because he was only 49. It was like a random brain aneurysm. He just died. So it's really sad. But I mean, the great thing is you can see a lot of his impact in Mythbusters, and it was a great show. It was a really good show.
It really was. So yeah, that was my last discovery for this week.
I think it's time for some music.
Some music.
Yeah,
the music
I think it's time
is
for
back.
some music.
It is time.
So next week I have the week off of work. And one of the things I'm doing is I am going to work through my backlog of Creators Cove episodes. And they're just going to be coming out in a wave. But I think it was 2 weeks ago now, I talked to a band called Buster Sledge. And Buster Sledge is a bluegrass band from Norway. One of the members is from California, but the other two are from Norway. It's banjo, fiddle, guitar. If you just heard this band and had no idea where they were from, you would think they were from Appalachia somewhere, but they
South Carolina.
Yeah, I literally talked to them from Norway, and I had a great time talking to them. But they just put out their debut album, and so that's the one I'm going to recommend this week. But as always, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. We have a ton of ways that you can get in touch with us. We've been live streaming this on YouTube and Twitch. Well, we've been live streaming on Twitch. We're going to start uploading to YouTube again. We are live streaming on Facebook in our Facebook group, the Podcast Discovery Club. We would love to have you join us there. We have a Twitter. We have Spotify. Get in touch any way you can. We would love to hear from you. And we really appreciate you joining us.
We really do.
And
until next time, guys, bye.
This is...
Okay. I'm going to cut that out.
No, just leave it in.
I forgot.
No, leave it in. It's good. So now that we've ended twice, here it is. This is from their debut album, released June 19th by Buster Sledge. The album is Spirit, and this is the title track, Spirit. Thanks for listening.
Bye, guys.
Sun goes up and then goes down. scar. I try to remember and forget. I am not scarred. The sun goes up, then goes down. Every piece of fruit on the tree would fall at the ground, and it would just lie there in the light. Then it would turn brown. None of that really matters now. It's just a whole lot like being eaten. Oh, anyhow. Spirit hopped out of my fiddle. He jumped right back in, and I let him get away. I gotta break that